The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, of course, your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is August 1st, and I am back in the studio here in Boston. So, first and foremost, thank you to all of you and thank you for your patience. And so I had full intention of giving you coverage every single night last week with the podcast, with the show. I took all of my gear to do just that. And when I tell you, I don't know, how should I say it? Shit went down, man. It was crazy out there. It was so crazy that I just could not possibly break away from the protests that were and the action that was happening in order to do the show. So first, I want to thank you for your patience. And then second, I want to thank the Progressive Army for being in place and carrying on the show for YouTube. And whenever and wherever I could, I did the podcast. So thank you guys so much for understanding. We have a lot to talk about, like legit. 857-600-0518. We'll start taking calls probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But before we do that, I just wanted to just say hello, man. I missed you guys, and we had a lot of great coverage. I had a chance to briefly get a question in with Jill Stein. I had a chance, and I'm going to play that. I had a chance to just to give you a good look at what the protest actually looked like, because and when I say the protest, of course, I'm talking about the protest for the DNC last week in Philadelphia. I was there, had a chance to meet a lot of great progressive voices, but more importantly than just the people we met, there was the movement. Special shout out to the fake Mike James out of Philadelphia. He was our host for the week. I cannot thank him enough. When I tell you, we hit the lottery. I've got so much to say, so you guys just bear with me. There's a lot on for us to talk about. We're going to cover it all, but when you're going for a week, you have to thank people who helped it happen. So the fake Mike James opened up his home to me and Michael Solomon and Alexander the Meh off of Twitter and treated us like royalty. I mean, we lived like kings for a week. So thank you to the fake Mike James. Everybody follow him on Twitter. I don't know if he has anything a lot to say, but just follow him anyway. He's funny as hell. So he's funny as hell in real person. I'm sure he has something good to say on Twitter. So we got to Philly, and the first night was pretty uneventful. But Tuesday in Philadelphia, there were every bit of, and when I say Monday night was uneventful, it was just Monday night. Monday day, Sunday, there was a protest with probably 5,000 people. Monday, there were at least 10,000 people involved in march and protest in downtown Philadelphia, from the convention center to the Wells Fargo Center where the DNC was being held. 10,000 people. I got footage and I had videos of it. Dr. Cornel West and Yane Indigo, they led the way. Dr. Jill Stein was included in those protests. So Tuesday, 10,000 people. And I guarantee you did not see that on the news. Tuesday night, about 6,000 of those people stayed and protested there outside of the DNC, where delegates were walking back and forth. There was a gauntlet of shame where they were shouting shame, shame, shame to delegates, Hillary Clinton delegates, for whatever reason, plenty of reasons. And we'll discuss that later on. So that was Tuesday night. Wednesday night was less eventful because of course, every time there's a party, there's someone there to mess up the party. Anarchists showed up on by Wednesday night. They were there. They were burning, trying to destroy. Actually, they tore down the fencing. The police had to come in like stormtroopers and shut it down. Thursday night, by the time Hillary Clinton got up to speak, it was another beast all into itself. Every bit of about 5,000 to 6,000 people out there protesting Hillary Clinton. And in the midst of that, you had the police, a strong police presence. And we'll talk about all the details of that. But overall, what are the major takeaways from the DNC? Well, one, it's their party, and they're going to cry if they want to. They're going to do whatever the hell they want to do, and it's their party. There should be no surprise, no disillusionment. I don't think anyone should be so taken aback by the measures and the extent to which they went to make sure that this came off on television as though it was the perfect coronation and party unity. You know, it was an infomercial. And I was listening to someone, I believe it's from Politico, and I can't think of his name, but he was on C-SPAN. And he really pointed out, he was on C-SPAN about Wednesday, and he was pointing out that conventions in the past were full of dissent. It was full of people who disagreed and argued and you know, shouted each other down. But now we moved into this model where the convention is made for TV and you don't want to show any dissent. And it's really just a week-long infomercial for the presidential candidate. And with that in mind, it shouldn't come to a surprise to anyone about all the tactics that the DNC employed to silence Bernie Sanders protesters, threatening or snatching their credentials, making sure certain people couldn't be seated, everything from allegedly setting up white noise machines so that it could cancel out the noise. That I haven't found a lot of verifiable sources on, but that was, quote unquote, the word on the street. But for sure, they did pass out placards and handouts saying if Bernie Sanders protesters shout no more war, then Hillary Clinton's protest supporters should shout USA, USA. If Bernie Sanders supporters shouted no TPP, Hillary Clinton supporters should shout Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. If Bernie Sanders protesters shouted Black Lives Matter, then Hillary Clinton protesters should have shouted Black Lives Matter, which is interesting in itself, right? We'll talk about the identity politics, and at least they have the wisdom not to try to shout down that protest. But this was all scripted. This was all planned. No big surprise. It went without a major hitch. And to the general public, it seems like there's party unity because CNN didn't really cover the protest outside. And when they did, everyone that I spoke to that was watching it live on television was saying that that CNN was saying, and major news outlets was saying, that it was only about 200 or 300 protesters. Well, if you watch my live stream, I had 1,000 people watching my live stream on Periscope on Tuesday night. If you were watching the live stream, you know sure as hell there was far more than 200 or 300 people. There were 200 or 300 people pressed up against the one fence. So for sure, for certain, there was every bit of 5,000 to 6,000 people on Tuesday night, which was the biggest night of protest, in my opinion. Maybe Thursday night rivaled it. Maybe Tuesday and Thursday was about the same. But there were a lot of people protesting, but you would not know that because of how the media covered it or how they ignored it. That's number one. And then two, you would not know that the party was so severely divided because of all of the counter chants that that protesters, that Hillary Clinton supporters were given to say. So, I mean, that's a quick snapshot of everything that happened last week. I did it this week already, and I want to do it again. I have to give a shout out to the Philadelphia police because for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have to give them a shout out because they are slicker than a mug, man. They employed some tactics. Philadelphia police, shout out to you guys. They employed some divide and conquer tactics that were masterful. Like if I was in charge of keeping the peace, I was brilliant. I mean, they had people chasing, they had the protesters chasing ghosts, basically back and forth all night long, and to the point where you had one large crowd of 5,000 people divided up into 3 smaller crowds, and then eventually it died off. Master stroke of policing and intelligence and infiltration. So shout out to Commissioner Ross. I game recognized game. So that's number one. Number two is this one is a real compliment though. The other one was tongue in cheek, but this is a real genuine compliment. On Thursday night, there were anarchists in the crowd. And yes, they were anarchists. I do know what anarchy is. I know exactly what it is in terms of breaking down any hierarchical structure. I get it. They were in the crowd, and their express purpose was to cause chaos. I know that anarchists have a strategy overall that is not chaos. They don't perceive it as chaos, right? But their goal that night at the protest on Thursday was chaos and violence. And so they were there to provoke the police. And there were moments where you really felt as though this could go south very quickly. And if the police had taken any bait, if the police had not been disciplined enough to ignore everything. Listen, ask Tim Black, he was there. Ask Michael Solomon, he was in the middle of it with me. Ask anybody that was there in the middle of it. And it was a group of anarchists, I would say about 15 to 20, who wanted to instigate violence with the police, who wanted to destroy, not only destroy property, but destroy the fence, the barriers that separated the bulk of the police from the crowd. And they wanted expressly to demonstrate how, quote unquote, bad the police were. Had the police taken the bait, it would have been a very violent night. Thankfully, the police did not take the bait. And I saw firsthand, I saw a guy next to me just provoking the hell out of one of the police officers. And instead of the police officer taking the bait, the police officer took down. He asked his supervisor standing next to him if he could move, and he moved himself to the back of the line so that he did not have to submit himself to the harassment, but also would not be there to be provoked. So from that aspect, I have to honestly commend the Philadelphia police. Shout out to Commissioner Ross. They sent in the stormtroopers, the riot police, somebody, I don't know which higher up did this, but there's a video online. You can see all of the riot police getting off their bus and marching right smack in the middle of the crowd. But Commissioner Ross was there, and he told them to turn their asses around, and they got right back on the bus and left. So where this could have been a very violent night, it didn't turn into violence. And it's smart, right? So it could be a couple of reasons why, and I don't want to belabor this point too long. I'll move on to the news of the day, but I have to put this at the top because it's very significant. Listen, Philadelphia police has a history of violence, and just like many other police departments, but there's a history of violence with the bombing of black militant groups in the 60s. I mean, the Philadelphia police has some problems, and so this good night that we saw could just be the result of the new commissioner trying to do his best to improve relationships with the community. Fine. It also could be just like me. Like, my in-laws are coming in town, and I'm going to make sure my house looks extra nice when they come in town. But when they're not in town, when guests are not in town, I might have that closet full of junk. Right? This could have been just the Philadelphia police being on their best behavior because all of the world was there. All of the world was watching. 3, it could have been white privilege because there was a lot of white people out there. And I just have to ask myself the question, would this have gone down this way had it been a Black Lives Matter protest? I don't know. I can't prove a negative, right? It could be that. But then 4, it could just be Commissioner Ross is trying to fix some things there in Philadelphia, and they did a damn good job. I don't know what it was. I'm going to err on the side of saying damn good job, Philadelphia. A lot of respect. And if this is how you treat people on a regular basis, then this is a motto for the love of God. Show Baton Rouge, show Ferguson, show all of these other police departments who are out here cracking skulls just because a crowd got rowdy. Please take a better model of policing across the country. All right, enough of that. 857-600-0518. In the news, so I expected to be able to talk about Jill Stein and the offer that she made to friend of the show, Nina Turner, to be her VP pick. But right around 8 o'clock, Jill Stein of the Green Party announced a different presidential candidate that is not vice presidential candidate that was not Nina Turner. He's an African-American man. I don't have his name in front of me, unfortunately. Hang on, let me see if I can pull up his name. But anyway, I don't have his name. I'll look for his name. But the big question of the day was, should Nina Turner, former surrogate for Bernie Sanders, take the VP spot for Jill Stein and the Green Party? Well, the question has been answered. She did not take it, and to be honest with you, I'm okay with that. I'm good. I'm happy about that. Now, I met Jill Stein, had a chance to ask her some questions. I was thoroughly impressed with Jill Stein. I'll play a clip for you before the night is over. However, I still am happy with the fact that that Nina Turner did not take the VP spot, because you know what, the Green Party is not going to win, right? The best we can hope for is to help them get 15% and help them get on the debate stage to show America that you have other options. Absolutely. I'm actually on board with four parties being on stage: the Libertarian Party, Dems, Republicans, and the Green Party. Have all four on stage. I'm 100% on board with that. But because Nina Turner is a friend of the show, and because she has sacrificed a lot already. There's so many people after her. We'll talk about that in and of itself, right? This fake intersectionality, this fake solidarity with black women that Democrats pretend to have. They have been after Nina Turner since she decided to have her own mind. They have been after Nina Turner since she decided to have her own mind and make her own decision. And because of that, but she still fought the fight. Right? She still stood by Bernie Sanders, and she stood by what she believed, what she would call the heart, head, soul agreement. And because of that, she took it on the chin throughout this entire election. And she took it on the chin from Hillary Clinton, her surrogates, black women, people who are always talking about black girls rock and black girl magic and all this stuff. They just as soon attacked her over her political independence as they would attack a Bernie bro. And as much as I wanted to see Nina Turner expose this on a national level by being Jill Stein's VP pick, I actually love Nina Turner too much to have her fall on her sword just to expose something politically, just to further our movement. She's done enough. Nina Turner, take a break. You've done a good job. And thank you for all that you've done. And only make decisions at this point that's best for you and your family without any burden from this progressive movement. We as a progressive family love you. We're grateful for you, but because I love you like a sister, I am glad to know that you did not take the VP spot, because you know what? There's a governor seat opening up in Ohio. And I think it would be good for progressives to get a governor, an African-American woman governor, no less. All right. And just for correction here, Jill Stein, she has selected as a human rights activist, Ajuma Baraka, who is her vice presidential running mate. So she did go with an African-American man. So this should be interesting. Let's see if that gives her any boost in the polls. All right, 857-600-0518. Also tonight, I want to talk about Donald Trump, the DNC leaks, and the quote-unquote Russian hack We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Melania Trump's nude pictures. Maybe not what you think, but then if you've been watching me for a while, you probably know what I think. But let me take a moment before I take these calls, and I want to thank our patron. I only had one patron last week. Listen, last week was expensive. Last week was expensive. Man, I ran so much data. I mean, we spent a lot of money last week to bring you that coverage. For those of you who participated via Twitter, those of you who watched via YouTube, Spreaker, I got it. You know, we didn't do a whole lot of broadcasting on Spreaker, so but we're back. And you can support the show by going to patreon.com/the BPD show. Become a patron and support the Benjamin Dixon Show so that we can do more of what we did last week and have live remote coverage and etc. But we had a patron who came in today, Mary Beth. Mary Beth, thank you so much for becoming a patron. We honestly, this show is, I would say, 99% funded by patrons. So thank you so much. And anyone listening, if you can't afford, I mean, you can afford $1 a month, but if you can't, then just subscribe, share, follow, like, all those other things. But if nothing else, buy me a cup of coffee on a monthly basis for $5 a month. All right. We have our first caller who's been patient and on hold. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and our question?
Hey, Ben, it's Bryce.
Hey, Bryce, how's it going, man? It was good to meet. I met you this weekend, man. Good to see you there in Philly.
Definitely. Good to see you too. Good to see everybody. It was obviously, a positive week in terms of the whole progressive movement from Young Turks to Majority Report to so many people out there. The protest was good, and me being from Philadelphia, I know how the police are, but I'm glad to see that it's kind of been turning the corner through the years. It has its moments, but we haven't had a all-strong situation, thank God. But but we'll see how that goes as time moves forward. But basically, I think what took place last week was important, and it's very interesting, and we'll see how it all goes, see what's going to happen. I haven't made a decision on what I'm going to do voting-wise in terms of what I'm going to vote for in terms of if it will be Hillary or it will be either Joe Stein or Gary Johnson. I'm still in debate. I have time to think about it. But, of course, I understand why people can't vote or not going to vote for Hillary or won't. And I understand both sides of it. Because basically my question really is, how do you feel about both sides? Because you have the one side that says, okay, if we vote for Hillary, we put her in, then we can at least try to push it to the left as much as we can. And we have all these progressives that's coming in, and a lot of progressives that's probably running for president coming up, and even future elections. We can push her as far as we can the best way, and then that'll be more productive because we know Republicans push that platform. They just don't give a damn. We know that. Then the other half is like, we can't vote for her. We can't vote for her. Screw that. If Trump wins, oh well. The country has to fall apart, oh well. The establishment will just know, the big factors to take the big hit. I mean, we don't understand more things to change. I guess I kind of want to know what's your position on it. And in terms of how do you feel about both sides? The one side that says, screw Hillary.
Oh, snap. That was totally my fault, Bryce. I honestly, it's an honest mistake there. So let me answer your question. How do I feel about it? Nah, man, you ain't gonna pin me on that one, and you're not gonna pin me down on that. Listen, one thing I'm gonna do is you vote your conscience. That's all I want you to do. Vote your conscience. I don't think, I think we're in a place where, they both present. Listen, I think this election is screwed up. I think it's horrible that we have to choose. And okay, let's start here. Hillary Clinton is not this glorious, wonderful candidate where it is the immaculate conception arrival of the one that we've all been waiting for. Let's cut that bullshit narrative right there. She's not. At very best, Hillary Clinton is a quasi-technocrat who understands how the American system works, who has worked in politics long enough to know where all the skeletons are buried, and she would be an efficient, efficient at whatever she does. Now, whether you agree with what she does or not, she's going to be hell of efficient doing it. Right? That's the best that I can describe her as. She is, it is historic in the sense that she is the first woman, and I fully expect that we're going to be inaugurating her as the first woman president of the United States of America. Here, goddamn here. Here, here. Congratulations. All right. Now, would you celebrate Margaret Thatcher in hindsight? So yes, it is historic, but it's only historic because of her gender, which is a major deal. I am excited about us getting and having the first woman president. I am. You don't believe me? You can't see my heart. My heart is overjoyed and overwhelmed that we are going to have and break the last, highest, greatest glass ceiling. But what Hillary Clinton is not is historic in any other sense. She is a white privileged woman, extremely wealthy woman, born into an aristocratic family, married into an aristocratic family. She is a power hungry person who has always looked for power. She has been very strategic all along. She is very ambitious, for the better or worse. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but she is not this savior of anything but her own ambition. Now, is that reason enough for me to say, don't put her in office and put this egomaniacal, idiotic, bombastic, blubbering, dithering, white nationalist, supremacist son of a bitch into the White House? Well, that's for you to decide, not me. I can't do that. I won't tell you what to do. I will tell you that Donald Trump flirts with white nationalism to the level that I am personally uncomfortable with. I think if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are the same economically, with the exception of their language on the TPP, yet and still I believe both of them are fully going to sign the TPP. I think the major difference between the two is that Donald Trump openly endorses and flirts and inflames white nationalism. And I'm uncomfortable with that. But I've been fighting that most of my life. So, you know, I don't have anything to offer you guys on this other than to say, vote your conscience. And because no matter what, in 2017, we are going to be in the opposition. Because I can tell you now, I don't care what Hillary Clinton has said at the Democratic convention, she is going to be forwarding policies against which I must stand in opposition from a progressive perspective. And you know as hell, sure as hell, Donald Trump is going to do the same thing. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
All right.
Hey, Scotty, what's going on, man? How's it going?
Not much. Watched the entire, well, not the entire, but watched the whole unfold on the internet on DNC because I couldn't watch it on corporate media because I knew what I was going to get.
Yeah.
And what I saw from the delegates was really, it was appalling. Like, you would see instances where people would have their signs taken away.
Oh, yeah.
You would see instances where there's a video where the Arkansas delegate had his credentials taken away because of the no TPP sign. Like, seriously, if the Democratic candidate is saying that she's now against the TPP, then why would you tell a guy that he can't bring in the no TPP sign? I think, but what's more disturbing to me, and this is why I, even though I said I admire the Sanders campaign for what it did, I also said, again, like, he's a sheepdog. What happened to Nina Turner and his delegates was awful. And the fact that he didn't stand up for these people was even more awful. Like,
you're the second person I heard say that. How do you know that he didn't stand up for them?
He didn't make any public statements like, at least say, listen, a lot of these people are hurt. He could have just still said, listen, I understand, I'm still working my best to defeat Donald Trump, which that's just a dumb statement to make. But he's a part of the Democratic establishment at this point. But
yeah, I don't
he
disagree with that.
He still could have at least said, listen, these people are, they're passionate, they care about democracy, and they've been hurt, so we should at least be more understanding about these people. And, I wish that Tina Turner would have been able to speak, but that was beyond my control. He didn't even do that.
So, but
here's
let me push back a little, because again, you're the second person I've heard make this case, and he did make the case behind the scenes. We can ask why hasn't he said it publicly since, but he was behind the scenes trying to get Nina Turner to speak, fighting on her behalf. So, I mean, is a problem that he didn't say it publicly for everyone else to see, or are you under the impression that he didn't even fight for them behind the scene?
At this point, you never know, but not just Nina Turner, but his delegation, like you're asking your delegation to not voice their displeasure of what's going on. And then not only what happened with the whole, oh, and by the way, fuck Sarah Silverman. I'm sorry. What she said to those people.
Yeah. No, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah, fuck Sarah Silverman. Like what she said to the people in the crowd.
That was
you're being ridiculous. Like
that wasn't even called
about
for.
their democracy.
Yeah.
So last part of the show I want to say is, look, I'm at the point where, like I said, I'm either not going to vote or I'm thinking about voting for Jill Stein. Now, I've said what I said about the Green Party, in the past. And I, in a way, I do think that reaching out to Sanders supporters is sort of cynical, because you do have that party is filled with people that have a real cynical view about the Sanders supporters. But you know what? They're not, the Sanders supporters actually stood up and actually said that they were not infatuated with the whole cult of personality. They were actually willing to
burn Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, they were actually willing to boo their own candidate.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, listen, you've got to reach out to these people. They've got to find somewhere to go.
I agree. I agree with you. No, I was saying I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that part. Scotty, thanks so much for the call, man. I agree with you on that. I do agree with you on Sarah Silverman. Very much unnecessary, very corny. It's one of those things that, so that entire segment with Sarah Silverman was impromptu. And it's one of those things where you get up and you don't have anything ready to say, so you say something dumb. Sarah Silverman says something dumb as F. So she deserves anything people say at this point, within reason, right? No harassment and death threats or whatever, nothing like that. But she should have just shut up and sit down, because these people did have the right. So in terms of the delegates, though, I agree. Bernie Sanders, I don't know if it's selling out, but doing whatever he was supposed to do as an insider now. He's back and in the good standing with the Democratic Party. So I guess it's fair to say he sold them out, especially by saying he didn't want them to protest and trying to rally them before, and you know what? He probably did it knowing full well that he's just walking through the motions, because Bernie Sanders supporters do whatever the hell Bernie Sanders supporters want to do, and they do whatever they feel is right. So I have to give the Bernie Sanders supporters some kudos on that regard. But yeah, so a couple other things I want to cover. I'll take this last caller, then I'm going to cover a couple of the news. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, this is Wendy. How are you?
Doing great, Wendy. How are you?
Good. So I actually just called to give 2 points quickly. First of all, I just wanted to really congratulate you all on your amazing coverage during the convention, and also just to say a word of thanks for, no problem. Also to just say a word of thanks for not immediately shifting gears, as I've seen many quote-unquote progressive news outlets do, to all of a sudden force us to vote for Hillary Clinton. And I also appreciate that you've been sort of on course in terms of being realistic and critical of her platform. So even though now she's the only one left of the Democrats for us to vote for, I still appreciate that you're holding her feet to the fire and basically doing your job, as opposed to simply ignoring some of the problems that remain, and that based on some news coverage that I've seen, potentially could get worse. So I appreciate that and hope you continue that as we hit the next few months go forward. But the other thing really quickly that I just wanted to mention is that one personal observation that I have had in terms of this election, that especially lately, because I see the pressure ramping up again, you have to vote for Hillary, you have to vote for Hillary, we have no other choice, Trump is so bad, is that I feel like a lot of my friends and family and colleagues and whatnot who are of color or who are marginalized in some way, who are Muslim, who are black, who are fill in the blank, a lot of us are just kind of like, I mean, we're scared of Trump, but we're also scared of Hillary. So there's a real sense of like white guilt going into this process. Like, you black people need to be afraid. And I'm like, but you guys were standing by laughing at Trump when we were telling you months ago, before he even got serious, that he's scary. So I just appreciate that you're keeping it real all the way through. And thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for that call. I do the best that I can to keep it real. It is not easy. But I tell you what, it's not. I'm not tempted one iota to be like rah system by Hillary. I already told you guys months ago, if Ted Cruz had won the nomination for the Republican Party, I would most certainly be wearing a Hillary Clinton t-shirt right now, because to me, he is the devil. Ted Cruz is the devil. Hillary, you might think Hillary Clinton is the devil. I firmly believe that Ted Cruz is the son of Satan. Because he's Donald Trump plus religious zealotry. Think about everything bad about Donald Trump and add on religious zealotry. Yeah, Ted Cruz is worse. But other than that, I have nothing in me that wants to make me listen. What I'm tired of is, I think Scotty said it, the cult of personality. We are here to hold our candidates and political leaders accountable, not here to be their damn cheerleaders. And even though we are fighting against this monstrosity that is Trump, there's two things you have to keep in mind. If we had a stronger candidate, Trump wouldn't even be a question. Right now, a stronger candidate would be leading Trump by 20 points minimum. So the fact that we have a weak candidate and we're actually having to fight against Trump is part of the problem in the first place. But the second part of the problem is that just because we are trying to make sure that Trump never gets in power does not mean that we should engage in behavior now that is going to underscore a manipulative, dictatorial type of anything goes, I can get away with anything because my audience and my supporters would never hold me accountable type of behavior. If we, as people who support progressives and people on the left, cannot bring critique to progressives and people on the left and even some Democrats, then we have done ourselves a disservice and we've given them a blank pass to do whatever the hell they want to do. And we can't do that. I get that Republicans play the dog whistle so loudly with President Obama that most of us kind of closed in ranks to do whatever we could to protect President Obama, because the Republicans were some racist sons of bitches, right? They were just disgusting. But because we closed those ranks around President Obama, we failed to hold President Obama accountable on a lot of issues. Droning, right? Some economic issues. His attempt to give away a portion of Social Security. Black Lives Matter. Didn't do a damn thing for the black community. Not a single iota significant thing for the black community, except lecture us about kids who have to eat Popeye's chicken for breakfast. I almost called him an MF. That's the kind of stuff that he gave us. But because we had this reactionary, we had to protect our first black president from the racist Republican Party. We can't make that same mistake twice. And I have no type of affection for Hillary Clinton that would warrant me, closing ranks and trying to protect her from criticism. I wasn't on the air back then, so it's not really my fault. But I imagine if I had been on the air back then, I would be caping the hell out of, I would be caping for President Obama, right? Because of how ridiculous the Republican Party has been. Right. But that's not, well, thankfully, I wasn't on the air. Now I'm on the air with clearer eyes, and I can realize that all of us trying to protect President Obama actually hurt President Obama as well as the progressive movement. We did not hold him accountable. And I just don't feel like we have any love for Hillary Clinton enough to do the same thing. I don't. I won't. You may, but you got to come by the Benjamin Dixon Show and come by my desk before you get away with it. Here's the other thing. There's another little bit of nuance. It's the Republican Party's fault also, because we need a party that is capable of bringing some valid. Sometimes you need your opposition to help you with your own candidate and your own political leader who's lost their damn minds. But the Republican Party is completely incapable of being a valid hedge against let's just say a tyrannical Democrat. Why? Because they've labeled everything as tyrannical. They've labeled everything as socialism. They've labeled everything as communism. They've Benghazi to the 1000th degree, right? They drove Benghazi so far down the rabbit hole of stupidity that when the email situation servers came up, everyone dismissed it as a right-wing propaganda, right-wing hit job. When in reality, there was some real substance there for us to have a substantive debate. But the Republican Party, as the opposition, has become so ridiculous that we can very easily just brush them to the side and say, they're all idiots. They're all conspiracy theorists. They're all racist. They're all sexist, and they're all absurd. So why would we ever listen or believe anything they have to say? It's the boy who cried wolf. But in this sense, the wolf is racism, misogyny, bigotry, and everything else. Now nobody believes them. And so here we are having to carry the entire fight of holding our own political figures responsible when in actuality, the opposition could have served a useful purpose in holding our candidates accountable. I know it's a little bit of political jujitsu there, but that's the role they play. And that's a role opposition parties should play. There is a need for opposition, but when you have become as absurd as a Republican Party, no one will ever believe you. And so what do we have? We have liberals who are already gearing up to say anyone who criticizes Hillary Clinton is a sexist. You have Republicans who just are incapable of bringing a valid critique without going over into stupidity and insanity. And all that leaves us with are people like me who don't care that much for Hillary Clinton. I don't see her as the devil. I don't see her as the worst thing in the world. I just see her as a person who I'm going to have to stand in opposition against, probably on, if it's Tuesday, I'm probably going to have to be on the opposite side of an issue with Hillary Clinton. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. If it's Tuesday, she's probably trying to find some and pass some policy that I have to oppose. All right. 857-600-0518. Last but not, let me do a little bit on con. Now, here's a flip side, right? So a lot of the Democratic convention was a lot of dog and pony. But this to me was a highlight of the convention. Let's listen in.
The best of America. If it was up to Donald Trump, he never would have been in America. Donald Trump consistently smears the character of Muslims. He disrespects other minorities, women, judges, even his own party leadership. He vows to build walls and ban us from this country. Donald Trump, you're asking Americans to trust you with their future. Let me ask you, have you even read the United States Constitution? I will gladly lend you my copy.
All right, bruh. I promise you I'm going to get my applause track in here. But Khan, is this his last name, Mr. Khan, that was the highlight of the convention to me. Because we fight Republicans so many, not just Republicans, but we fight bigotry on so many fronts that I was glad to see that. All right. I really was touched by that. It speaks volumes about the diversity of America, and that's ultimately what we want to see. We want to see America be more than what Bill O'Reilly called being controlled by white Christian men. That has traditionally been America, and it's beautiful to see a Muslim family, husband and wife, on stage challenging someone who has been directly challenging them. I have Donald Trump's response to it. I honestly don't think it's worth even giving voice to. Donald Trump replied, but good thing takeaways from that. Well, it stands for itself. I don't have to give any more commentary. But pocketbooks, pocket-sized constitutions sales have been skyrocketing on Amazon. I do want to disconnect. So Owen, in that clip here, because I don't want what I'm getting ready to say to be connected with what I just played. End scene, new scene. The thing that bothered me, though, is that the Democratic convention was overwhelmingly a nationalistic convention. Yes, it was nationalistic and it was inclusive, but the Democratic Party was very conservative at this convention. Now, understand that conservative values should include diversity by virtue of the Constitution, right? There's room in the Constitution for diversity. And if you're real conservative, then diversity should be a part of your interpretation of the Constitution. I know that's not the case, right? I know that that's not the case. But it was interesting to see the Democratic Party become the flag-bearing, pro-family, it was just really conservative in that sense. It was really a shift to the right in this interpretation of America, and it was a play on, even President Obama's speech, he was talking about how Donald Trump isn't really Republican and how Donald Trump isn't really conservative, and then he started moving the party further and further to the right. I think it's okay to be pro-American, right? I think it's okay to be patriotic and fly your flag, right? But I don't think it's okay for us to play patriotism and play at the themes that the conservative party and the Republicans have so easily manipulated for propaganda. Like, unless we're going to unpack it like the clip I just played with Mr. Khan and his wife talking about their son who was killed in the war, unless we're going to unpack it and show that this is the patriotism, this diversity is what is, unless we're going to unpack all of the years of propaganda that the Republican Party has imbued into the connotations of real America, unless we're really going to undo it, then it's dangerous for us to play with those themes to attract Republicans, because attracting Republicans, drawing someone with the idea of real America their interpretation of real America could be very different than what I consider to be real America. I consider real America to be everyone who is in this country, born in this country, immigrated to this country, everyone, every orientation, every gender identity, every race, every religion, no religion, and playing on these conservative themes without unpacking that and being very open about that attracts people who are attracted to the real America and Take America Back and the flying of the flag and the red, white, and blue. But in their mind, the red, white, and blue is for white Christian men. So it was a little uncomfortable because, even though they had that moment there that was beautiful to me with Mr. Khan, his wife, and talking about their son and challenging the Republic and challenging Donald Trump, whether or not he had even read his Constitution, I think that was the high point. I think that was it. I think everything else was just propaganda, and propaganda particularly targeted to draw right-wing Republicans. And that could be problematic if we are not properly helping them understand that if you're coming over here from over there, then you have to leave your xenophobia, your homophobia, your Islamophobia, your racism, your sexism, your transphobia. You have to leave all of that over there and come to this interpretation of America, which is a conservative interpretation of America, conservative in the sense that all men, all women, or all non-gender conforming, all religions, all races are created equal. All right. Didn't mean to talk about that, but I did. All right. Last thing I want to talk about is actually the thing that's been bothering me the most all weekend. I saved it for the end just because I didn't want to ruin the show. But what's been bothering me all weekend is this push by, how should I start this? Let me start here. On the screen, I have a news article from the New York Journal. And the headline reads, "Destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy." And this article, in the headline, the subheadline, it says, Assistant Secretary Roosevelt convinced that the explosion of the warship was not an accident. This subsequently led to the Spanish-American War. Spanish-American War, February 15th, 1898, came on the heels of the explosion of the USS Maine, docked in Havana Harbor. The reason I showed you the headline is because the role that the media played in rallying the public opinion as well as the leadership and convincing us to go to war. This was not the first time the media has been complicit in war making, nor would it be the last time, but it is a significant flashpoint because of the specific role that this one media outlet controlled by one major source had on all of the population. And it was the purest example of yellow journalism, where they presented just enough or not enough legitimate information, nothing substantive, but just enough to inflame the passions of the people reading their articles. And as I thought it was William Randolph Hearst. It was his paper published years of story concerning Spain's brutal treatment of Cubans, pushing America towards public intervention. He ran articles daily blaming Spain for sinking of the Maine, claimed that Spain had blown it up with a mine, and no one knows exactly why the ship exploded, but it didn't matter why the ship exploded. All that mattered was the people believed, according to the headline, that it was the work of what? The enemy. Subsequently leading to the onset of the Spanish-American War. And I put that in there because there are people, this is the clip that you're seeing now is Theodore Roosevelt and his Rough Riders in the middle of the Spanish-American War. I put this in here because it's important for us to realize the role that the media plays in generating public opinion. And in their generating of public opinion, they have the media has the ability to set the public opinion either towards war or against war. And like I said, this was not the first time, most certainly not the last time. The most recent example would be the Iraq War. And with reporter Judith Miller of the New York Times, she reported that in the Iraq, and actually let me pull up a picture of her because I want you to make sure you see, and Judith Miller is actually still a person who is active in our politics today. Judith Miller reported that metal tubes were bound for Iraq, which is an obvious indication of weapons of mass destruction. In her article, she quoted an unnamed American official and an American intelligence expert. And the Bush administration officials that Iraq had, she claimed that the Bush administration officials had stepped up its quest for nuclear weapons and had embarked on a worldwide hunt for materials to make an atomic bomb. This was in her article in around 2002. This is important because her role as a journalist was actually used by Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, Donald Rumsfeld. They all used her article as justifications for their position to go to war with Iraq. She continued to print pro-war stories, claiming the U.S. has discovered weapons of mass destruction for some time, and her claims were eventually refuted. But her individual article is a prime example of how the media is able to control the outcome of whether or not we go to war. So in the first example, you have William Hearst's paper, the New York Journal, being used to generate public opinion and to push public opinion towards war. In the second example, you have a journalist whose article was used as evidence as to why we must go to war. Not to mention all of the surrounding newspapers that were pounding the drums of war along the way. The reason I mention this is because I'm starting to see a very troubling trend in liberal media, particularly around Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and the DNC leaks. The DNC leaks, Donald Trump as allegedly being the beneficiary, the recipient of the goodwill and the good wishes of the Putin empire. And the accusation is that Vladimir Putin has a vested interest in seeing Donald Trump become president. And this is what's being sold, right? This is what's being touted on a major outlet that people think is liberal, but it actually isn't. But for the sake of this conversation, MSNBC is a liberal rag. And on MSNBC, instead of discussing the substance of the emails, instead of discussing why the DNC was colluding for Hillary Clinton and colluding with the media in order to push Hillary Clinton and sabotage Bernie Sanders' campaign, what they would rather do instead is use their media outlets as a means of pushing the narrative that it is more important that we focus on Vladimir Putin and Russia's involvement in these leaks than it is to discuss the substance of the leaks. And amazingly enough, Mike Pence, the vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump, actually came out with the most measured response. He said that we must do both and. It is important for us to address whether or not Russia had involvement and what that involvement was, and to penalize Russia for their involvement. However, it should not be a distraction from the reality of what's in the emails. But because they have a vested interest in never discussing what is in the emails, they would rather pound the drums of a Cold War and potentially a hot war with Russia. And they're doing so simply as, well, Nothing more than a deflection. Listen in.
Week. I think we are in a situation of a national security crisis that is only going to get bigger. I think the Russians are running a strategic political warfare operation against the United States, and that we are at cyber war with them, like Director of National Intelligence Clapper said on Monday. As far as the DoD and Cyber Command is concerned, we're at war with Russia. Now, what appears to be happening is that they are running an operation to select or influence their preferred candidate to get into the White House. And I think Katie Tur hit it right on the head. Do you have any pause about what you're doing? And he had no pause whatsoever, which means that this is how his decision-making process will occur. We are in danger. Our national intelligence and national security and the American democratic establishment of choosing a presidency is under attack right now, and we really need to take this seriously. And I certainly hope investigations are going to start.
This is this is not Fox News. If you weren't watching it and you were listening via the radio, you would have thought this was Fox News, scaring their audience into believing that Russia is the big bad wolf that we should be concerned about. This was not Fox News. This was MSNBC, the quote unquote liberal station. And on the liberal station, they are going full-throated into the conversation about Russia being responsible for these leaks and the type of danger that we are in because of Russia's involvement with these leaks, and the type of response that we should have because Russia was involved with these leaks. Also, that these people never have to address the substance of the goddamn leaks. They would rather go and have the language of a Cold War instead of addressing the fact that the DNC needs to be gutted and stripped from the top to the bottom. And this coming from the liberal side, quote unquote, of America. We've seen it before, 1898, the Spanish-American War, brought to you in part by the medium, by William Randolph Hearst. We saw it with 2002, with the Iraq War, brought to you in part by journalists, ambitious journalists trying to get a headline and trying to get clicks. Well, and now we're seeing it with a different motivation, simply as a distraction to deflect from the reality and the substance of what was found in the WikiLeaks. You would think that liberals would be more cautious about beating the drums of war because of our experience with George W. Bush and the Iraq War. But once it benefits their particular narrative, they are just as willing to turn into hawks as any conservative, because it benefits them to point the finger at Putin instead of pointing the finger at the DNC. They are more willing to speak boldly and firmly as though Putin is a direct threat to our national interest, all so that we can completely ignore the fact that the DNC is guilty as hell of colluding on behalf of Hillary Clinton. No, I don't think if Putin is responsible for this, then he should not get a free pass. But you know what? Putin did not write those emails. And so if Putin wrote the emails, then yes, let's talk about Putin. But Putin didn't write the damn emails. Donna Brazile wrote the emails. People in the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz wrote the emails. Leadership, top to bottom, participated in these emails. But instead of being willing to address the substance of it, they would rather use their role in journalism to beat and pound the drums of war. And I would say a pox and a plague on all of your houses, but unfortunately, I probably live next to some of you bastards. So instead of that, get your shit together and stop being complicit. Stop being yellow journalists. Get a real job. Get real journalistic integrity and address the issue substantively instead of just using your platform for propaganda. I'll talk to you guys next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
It's Ben Dixon!
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.